is that the federal government has advised us in writing that they are not interested in attacking or involving federal resources in people that are in compliance with state law. All right? You can be fully in compliance with state law today and have far greater than 99 plants. After this bill kicks in and the regulatory process is fully initiated, you can still be in full compliance with state law, either statutory or constitutional, and have far more than 99 plants. So, that is the defense that I would use if I were in federal court with somebody being prosecuted. And of course, every single one of you in this room wants to avoid federal court. And that's why you're here. You don't want to be prosecuted. You want to just do this legally. You want to follow all the laws. And to that, I've got to say, we need to pressure these federals into giving us a little bit more written guidance. There was one point in time during the dark days of the Chris Barkowitz episode where, the gentleman goes on 9 News and kind of discusses what he's doing. The feds pop into his house that day, and then the next day on Saturday morning, I wake up, read my Denver Post, and I see the federal government saying, the day is coming when we're going to come into every dispensary and arrest everybody because they're in blatant violation of federal law. This is a direct quote from the chief DEA agent in Colorado. And of course, that causes widespread panic among the people that I work with. And so we followed up very quickly that morning, filed a written complaint with the United States Department of Justice, Office of Internal Affairs, or their equivalent rather. And luckily, the chief DEA agent steps back from that, I think, very irresponsible statement. So that was a good thing. But, folks, the federal government is still out there. And, they still have these attitudes. And one of the complaints we have with these bills is that the state is essentially, by opening this process and making it transparent and, requiring you to register and every single transaction is filmed and documented and all that. We don't have a problem with that philosophically necessarily because we don't have much to hide. The problem is, though, we may be teeing ourselves up and serving ourselves up on a silver platter to the feds. And until we get more guidance from them, I certainly can't speak for the DEA. I'm opposite them on nearly every issue, but they're out there. And I just, there is no good answer to your question. It's an excellent question. And a lot of these people in this room, most of these people in this room, are serious business people who just want to follow the law. And that's why we're here. You just want to follow the law and sell marijuana legally to suffering people as the law allows you to do. But the feds are out there, and I hope they participate in this. And if there's anything I can do to get them to participate, Mr. Cook, I will do that. I'm not sure they listen to me, unfortunately, but if there's anything at all I can do to get them involved, I'm happy to try to do it because, they need to get with this program. There are suffering people out there. The federal government has better things to do. The United States government is engaged in a global war on terror. The last thing they need to do is care about a plan that helps suffering people. That should be number 1,000 on their list of priorities. Just for the record, this is the third time in about 10 minutes ago that I agree on something, and that's a good thing. I agree that's a good thing. I have already reached out to the DEA. I have made a few phone calls. Unfortunately, when I was in the Western Slope, their general counsel returned a call to me, and I need to know where they stand on this issue. Not just the 99 plan issue, but I need to know where they stand on the totality of 1284. And it's one of my challenges, it's one of my commitments, and I can be a little overzealous at times too, when I need to get an answer, and I'm not afraid to do that. But it's critical that we know the answer to those questions before we move forward, from my standpoint. So I will continue to keep you posted as to where that issue goes.
My question is for Mr. Cook or Dan. Is there a July 1st deadline for the off-site grow premises for a medical center? That's one of the rumors floating around.
The answer again is technically 1284 doesn't recognize an off-premises until July of next year. whole July 1 requirement was for a center from my perspective. The real answer lies with your local government, and because you're subject to those local processes, rules, regulations until July of next year. So that's where you need to go. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Along the same lines, actually, there is a local Boulder attorney who says that he's read through the entirety of HB 1284, and he can't find anything that says there's actually a moratorium in the bill, but it's in the summary. So I was just wondering your comments on that.
Well, this is really a good one for perhaps a lawyer, but it's statutory construction. When they go through the regulatory or the legislative process, public policy process, they start out with a summary, and if the bill is amended, the summary doesn't always get amended. And so what you have are a summary for a prior version of the bill that didn't make it to the final version.
So what's law? What's in the bill?
What's in the bill is law.
So that means there's no moratorium for a
I
second.
can create a pretty good argument for that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yet again, I agree with Mr. Cook.
I think they need to be careful with that though, because, Mr. Cook keeps making reference to the locals. You gotta understand, 1284 is broken up into two parts. There's a local licensing part, there's a state licensing part. The state will not act until they get the local license approval. If you have a situation in a municipality or in a county, they're going to hold your feet to the fire on whether or not a road has to be, quote, established before July 1st, not unless the state's going to be able to fix the problem. So again, it's going to be a local jurisdictional issue. Make sure that I tell all of my clients, if you can solve the problem before July 1st, do it. It's just one less thing to argue about. Do you have an argument that maybe you can get in there because there's no moratorium, there's perceived no moratorium? Maybe, but do you want to risk, that amount of money, time, and effort to prove in court that you had the right to do it by the end of the act, July 1st of 2011, and, so just be careful. The statute says something, but the locals have a lot to say about it.
Go ahead, sir.
My question is regarding the 70-30 rule. It seems that the state laid out some pretty broad terms in terms of this 70-30, but I don't think there's any real concrete definitions of what that means. And it sounds like you guys still have a bit of work to do on your part in terms of defining what that means. Is it a monetary figure? Is it quantity? Is it daily? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? I was hoping that we could get some of your initial thoughts. What does the Department of Revenue think about that, and how are you guys going about regulating that side of it?
That's a very good question. Yeah, you probably just came in because I answered that about 5 minutes ago. The 70-30 rule is absolutely something we're going to have to engage in rulemaking about. And as I mentioned earlier, I need the expertise and the experience in the industry to figure out what drives that in terms of timeline. Off the top of my head, I think it should be commensurate with your growth. So every growth cycle you have, you harvest and you make your medicine, those kind of things, we'll have to revisit what the 70-30 means. But I think you make a timetable to that effect. As it relates to the September 1 deadline, I believe the statute requires you to certify, again through an affidavit that we'll provide, that you are growing 70% of the medicine yourself.
I have been here the whole time, and I did hear your initial response. I guess I just didn't get the answer I was looking for. It sounds like you guys still have a lot of thinking to do on the Department of Revenue's side of things. So you're open to opinions and...
Oh, absolutely. And that's really what the rulemaking process is all about. I can't overemphasize truly the significance of the impact that rulemaking has going forward, because the legislature typically makes those decisions in the form of a public policy that they chose to give to me, 22 of them, to define in law. And like I said, I've been doing this a while, and I'm not just going to say this is how it's going to be done. It doesn't work that way if you do it that way. I need your input and your expertise to make this kind of decision.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you a good example of how rulemaking can really affect the way things work. How many people in this room have been in a casino in Colorado? Okay. The constitutional amendment that